Hey everyone, it's Lisa from the blog farmhouseonboone.com. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking you through another What We Eat in a Week video. On this kind of video, I walk through one meal per day for a week, give or take. This week I'm going to be sharing 6 ideas. We do eat a lot of leftovers. We eat lunch at home since we work from home, we homeschool. You aren't getting the full picture of everything we eat in a week, of course, but I just like to share some inspiration through what I'm currently cooking, whether it's something seasonal or we have a certain cut of meat we're trying to get through. More on that in a bit. All right, for day 1, I want to show you how I make my popcorn cornbread. Instead of milling corn or just buying cornmeal, the reason I like to mill popcorn is because getting a non-GMO source of popcorn is really easy as opposed to any other type of corn. It's more difficult, or cornmeal from the store. This is just more accessible to me. I will say that my husband actually read on the mock mill website that you're not supposed to mill popcorn. I did not know that. So technically this is not allowed. However, it did work for me. So if you're a rebel, I don't know, because if it damages it, I don't know if that would be covered by warranty. So I don't want to steer you in a direction that will cause you to ruin your mock mill. I used to do this in the Nutri-Mill all the time, and I've never had any issues. So that it's probably not allowed in the Nutri-Mill either. I have no idea. I never thought to look it up because I'm kind of more of a go for it person and check the details later, if ever. If you feel comfortable milling popcorn, I do have this recipe printable on farmhouseonboone.com. I'm using a combination of oil and butter here, only because I had a little bit of oil on the stove that I needed to use up. But normally it calls for butter, and then it's a combination of cornmeal or ground popcorn and all-purpose flour. You could even use whole wheat flour that you also mill fresh in either your mock mill, your Nutri-Mill, or if you just want to buy some whole wheat flour. It's really delicious, and it pairs well with chili. So for today's meal, I have some meats that I need to get rid of. I'm really trying to completely empty my freezer. Every last bit of meat that maybe we don't really love cooking the most. One of those is deer ribs. I talked about this before, but I mean, who likes deer ribs? Maybe everybody does, and I'm just weird. So I had cooked a whole bunch of random beef and deer ribs, and we got a lot of them out of the way on nachos, but then I had a lot more left. And I decided that chili is actually the much better way to prepare these. So I sauteed some onions, added my cooked meat that I just cooked all day in a slow, low oven, and then pulled it from the bones. The bones remove so easily. We go to my husband's grandma's occasionally on Sundays, and somebody brought beans, and they're like, hey, do you want this tub of beans? I was like, I guess. So anyways, I had a big ice cream tub of beans, leftover meat, with a can of tomatoes, some chili powder, garlic powder, salt, and cheese and sour cream, and a little side of cornbread. This actually came together. This is a very typical Monday type of meal for us, to take whatever random stuff's in the fridge, turn it into a meal. All right, day 2, I am making a chicken and wild rice soup. I am starting with some reserved bacon fat. A lot of times this is what I saute vegetables in. We end up with quite a bit of fats like this whenever we cook a meat that has a lot of fat. I don't like to throw it away, especially because I take so much care in sourcing meat from really great farms. Well, specifically my sister's farm, and I know all of her practices are so good that I'm wanting to save every part that we get. With the soup, I want to do bacon. This is always, obviously, it tops any soup, and I had some sitting in the fridge all thawed out. My favorite way to make bacon is in the oven because it's a lot less messy. I just put it on a sheet pan, put it in the oven, maybe like 350 degrees until it's nice and crispy. For the chicken, I am browning it in the bacon fat and adding some salt. I just want to give it a little bit of color so that I can have a nice sear before cutting it up and putting it in with the rest of the soup. I do want to make a quick note. If you are cooking bacon in the oven, make sure you put it on a rimmed sheet pan or sheet cake pan or whatever, because otherwise obviously the grease will go absolutely everywhere. Don't want that. I one time told one of my kids to get some bacon going in the oven for me, and I forgot to mention that little detail, and it was of course quite a mess. I am going to add some carrots and onions. We still have not grocery shopped from last week, and so I'm just using up what we have. And carrots and onions, and usually potatoes, garlic, those are what we always have. So it makes up the base of a lot of meals. I'm gonna add the rest of the bacon fat and then just get rid of that jar and make a new jar of bacon fat from another batch of bacon. Now I have some homemade bone broth in the refrigerator. I cooked it with the bones from the deer and beef ribs as well as some chicken bones. So it's a combination of beef stock and chicken stock or broth or bone broth, however you want to call it. It's very gelatinous. If you're new to making bone broth, that is the goal. You want to cook it so long and slow and low that you extract all of that goodness from the bones. My Instant Pot died on me a while back, probably a year ago now. And so I have just been making all of my bone broth on the stove. I have a little simmer function on this 1949 caloric stove where when I put water and bones in a nice heavy Dutch oven that doesn't allow much steam to escape, and then put on that, just this little tiny center flame, I can leave it going for days. Occasionally I add a little bit more water because a little bit evaporates out, but for the most part, that is how I've been making my broth. I do love making it in the Instant Pot, and I kept my Instant Pot for making yogurt, but it does not seal anymore. And so I can't do broth. And honestly, I just haven't missed it enough to replace it. So I've just kept it for yogurt, and it's just that. After giving the veggies a good saute in the bacon fat and adding in the broth, I added in my wild rice, salt, garlic powder, any other herbs and seasonings, and then gave the chicken a nice chop to add back in. And then the bacon was finally crispy enough to pull out of the oven. After removing the bacon, I strain off all of the fat into a jar that I can now use throughout the week for cooking eggs, sauteing vegetables. It comes in really handy. And if you think about it, every bit of bacon fat you use is olive oil, coconut oil, or butter that you don't have to buy. So it really doesn't make any sense if you trust your sourcing and you've paid a lot to get good quality meat to throw that stuff away. I finish off the soup by adding in some cream, topping it with bacon, salt and pepper to taste, make sure it tastes great, and that is a wrap. All right, I want to pause and say thank you to today's video sponsor, Thrive Market. Thrive Market is an online grocery store that specializes in natural and organic ingredients, products. They have their own Thrive Market line that I especially love, where you can get organic ketchup, different spices like my everything bagel seasoning, several different herbs that we stock here like paprika and garlic powder. I get in their little bags, fill up my spice jars with them. I love that on Thrive Market I can get a lot of those basic staple pantry ingredients, but then I can also get some things that I can't find here, such as einkorn flour. I stock up on einkorn flour, einkorn pasta, from Thrive Market because it's a really good price. They actually have a price guarantee. I also like to get organic coconut oil, olive oil. They have just about everything I need. So there are several things that I love sourcing on Thrive Market. On the Thrive Market website, you can sort by dietary preference. So if you are paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, you can sort by that so that you only see those options. If you're a frequent customer like I am, it's really easy shopping experience because I get on there and I mostly buy all the same things over and over again that are staples for us. The box comes right to my door, making it very easy and convenient. Thrive Market also has a deals section on their website where I can find bargains oftentimes. I'll just take a quick look through that. Thrive Market is subscription based, so you can either pay for the year, which gives you a discount, or month to month if you just want to try it out and see what they have. Thrive Market is offering a discount for Farmhouse on Boone viewers. You can get 30% off your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60 by using my link, thrivemarket.com/Farmhouse on Boone. It'll also be linked in the description box below. For day 3, I am sharing with you a brisket. This is the day before this footage that you're seeing here. I'm getting in a bowl brown sugar, paprika, salt, cumin, chili powder, cayenne, thyme. Did I miss anything? Maybe some garlic powder and onion powder. This is a seasoning that I'm gonna rub onto the brisket and then put it in the refrigerator overnight or up to a couple days. Of course, this depends on how long your meat's already been in the refrigerator. I never like to leave meat in the refrigerator much more than, like, if it goes in the refrigerator frozen, I'm good with it being in the fridge for about 7 days, which means it's usually thawed for about 5 of that, something in there. Now you can go by smell and all that good stuff, but if it's already been in the fridge a while, you don't want to sit it in the fridge even longer with the seasonings. I put it in a shallow dish with a little trivet and some water, cover it, and then put it in the oven about 300 degrees for lots of hours. So this shot here is me putting it in the morning because we want to have it for dinner and I want it to have plenty of time to cook. The next thing I'm going to get going for this particular meal, and yes, I did switch aprons at some point throughout this day, I switched aprons, is a sourdough baguette, you might call it. I don't know. I'm still working on the recipe for the sourdough baguette. It didn't turn out exactly how I would want it to, so it's not going to go on the blog just yet, but at the moment, I'm working on shaping, and then I'm also going to be making some oven fries. I watched Shay Elliott on a recent video of hers make these gorgeous, spicy oven fries, and ever since seeing them, I just had to have them. She covered them with paprika, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and lots of olive oil, and then baked them in the oven. Now, for my long bread here, I'm not going to call it a baguette just yet. I made my regular sourdough recipe and then I shaped it in one of these long bannetons. It really isn't even a banneton. I just lined a tea towel in a long basket that I found a while back at a thrift shop. I put it in the refrigerator overnight for a second rise that was nice and long. Put it on parchment paper, gave it a score, and then I'm placing it on a preheated at 500 degrees stone. The reason for that is I'm trying to make sure that there's enough heat and steam in the oven to make it have that oven spring. As you can see, it looks really flat, and whenever you put bread in a Dutch oven, it poofs up. But without a long enough Dutch oven, like the shape of this bread, you can't really do that, and so you still want to create that same environment. I preheated a cast iron skillet, put some ice cubes in it, and then put it on that hot stone, which did allow for the oven spring to happen. So you can see it's a lot poofier than when it first went in. So we did get to accomplish some oven spring. Thought about buying some of the specific baguette pans, but really I just want to figure out how to do this because you don't always have a cast iron Dutch oven, and I think pretty good results here. There's a little bit to be desired, but I think it worked out mostly. Let's talk about day 4. The first thing I'm doing is making sourdough breadcrumbs. Again, this is not from the same day. I am pre-making these sourdough breadcrumbs for a future meal, but I'm going to show it to you here so that I can share with you the whole process. Ideally, you are using a stale loaf. It can be a brioche loaf, a sandwich loaf, it can be a boule, it can be whole wheat. I have my typical no-knead recipe, which is what I share about the most often because it's my favorite bread. I make an einkorn bread, I make a sandwich bread. This one just remains my favorite over and over again. I have it memorized. I can make it so fast. So I'm going to dry it out so that way I can make it into breadcrumbs even though it's not actually stale. The way this process will work is if you have stale bread, you can just put it in a food processor or a blender, blend it until it's really small, add it back to a sheet pan, bake it a little bit longer at 300 degrees or so that you can really dry it out. The goal is to make it very dry and very small. If it won't blend the first time, put it back on after you've tried to blend it in the oven a little bit longer to dry out even more, add it back to the blender, repeat. I ended up with this quart jar here, as you can see in the right part of the shot, the bottom right part, of breadcrumbs. I added a little bit of Italian seasoning. I even photographed it for the blog, so I'll pop in a couple pictures here. Really happy with the results, and I want to keep these all the time because I love making things that call for like a panko breadcrumb, so something fried or adding it to a meatloaf. In the past, I've always just added oatmeal to a meatloaf or coconut flour, and it's just not as good as breadcrumbs. So it's nice. Of course, why not make them from your homemade bread? I'm making a meatloaf here with 2 pounds of meat, peppers, onions, about a cup of my breadcrumbs, salt, pepper, parsley, about a half a cup of milk, about a half a cup-ish of ketchup, and a couple eggs. Just gonna give that a good stir with my hands and add it to a loaf pan, or in my case, I'm using this oval pan, kind of shaping it into the shape of a loaf. I'll get that into a 350-degree oven for about half an hour, and then I'm going to add the glaze on top. For this, I am mixing up a little bit of ketchup, onion powder, salt, and brown sugar. Put that on the meatloaf, return it back to the oven, and it'll just be so good. I think that sweetness is what makes a meatloaf delicious. Okay, on Sunday, I also went to my parents' house, and my mom made barbecue, and she sent me home with a container of baked potatoes. So with this meatloaf, I'm going to serve up some twice baked potatoes. I think typically on a twice baked potato, you put in sour cream. I did not have any sour cream, so I'm just doing cream, salt, pepper, and some onion powder, shredded cheese, and then just stuffing them back into the potatoes before popping them in the oven. I'll get a special treat today because I am making chocolate sourdough sweet rolls. These I started making several months ago. I posted an Instagram reel with them. I basically took my usual cinnamon roll recipe but added chocolate to the dough, but then also to the filling and chocolate chips. It's not the healthiest thing. I will say that the grains are long fermented, so I did get all of the dough going the night before, so there's a little something there. But I'm finally going to be getting it on the blog. I actually had it on my blog schedule for a couple weeks from now. My family is going to be going out of town. We have a vacation planned and we're excited about it. Actually, by the time this video comes out, we're already back, but I'm planning ahead. And I thought I'd taken photos whenever I made this several months ago. I went to visit that folder to upload it into my media library on WordPress, and I realized that there were no photos there, only the video for the Instagram reel that I made. So I guess I had this folder that said double chocolate sourdough rolls or whatever I'm gonna end up calling them, and I thought it had photos. It did not, but that only meant that on this random whatever day it was, we got to have decadent dessert with our meatloaf for lunch. So be sure to watch the blog for that recipe coming soon. Day 5. Last night I mixed in my mixer with the dough hook the dough for my sourdough dinner rolls recipe. It is not over fermented. It shaped just fine, but it definitely, after eating it, I fermented it a good long while. So it was pretty sour, but everybody in our family loved it. So I guess that's a win because that means that we got all the health benefits associated with sourdough and still everybody loved it. So it's always good to border that line of over fermentation where you can't even shape the dough and taste with all of the other factors, but this was a win. So I doubled my recipe, which usually makes 8 dinner rolls for a total of 16 dinner rolls. I added everything to the mixer last night with the dough hook around, I want to say about 8 o'clock. So it fermented for about 13 hours before I did the shaping here. Then I covered it with a wet tea towel and allowed the rolls to rise until about doubled. Also last night, at the same time I was doing a little bit of prep work in the kitchen, I got a bag of navy beans soaking with some vinegar and water. Soaking grains or beans in something acidic, whether you're soaking oats with a little bit of yogurt and water or beans with some vinegar or yogurt, helps to neutralize the anti-nutrients that are present in those kinds of things. So phytic acid is dealt with to an extent whenever you soak something. So it's not just for the convenience of faster cooking, it's also for the health benefits. I have a few hams in the freezer that I have been putting off cooking mostly because they're so large. I don't even know what to do with them. So I cut it in half. I put one half of it in the oven for a future meal, and the other half that had all the bones in with some veggies and the beans. So I cooked up some carrots and onions in lard, added the bone, some water, the beans, and then just cooked it for a good long while. This was morning when I got this going. We had it for lunch, so I think it cooked for about 3-ish hours, which made for very tender ham, cooked beans, cooked carrots, and then I removed the ham and gave it a quick chop, added it back in, added some salt to taste. You could also add some herbs here. I find it just so delicious and comforting. Whenever Luke came down this morning from reading to a couple of the kids upstairs, he said, it smells like Grandma Janice's house in here, because Grandma Janice is his grandma and she's from the South. And she cooks ham and beans all the time. Like every time we go to a dinner at her house, she'll make fried chicken, mashed potatoes, rolls. She makes this macaroni with tomatoes in it that they used to always grow from their garden. His grandpa has since passed away and he was the gardener in the family. And then she makes a pot of ham and beans. And it is really such a delicious side with all of that. So today I'm making it into a soup, which is not exactly how she does it, but it still has that same comforting feel. And of course is even better served alongside rolls with butter. The last meal I'm sharing with you today is another ham one. I'm going to have to freeze the rest of this ham because my family's going to be like, seriously, more ham, especially twice in a row. But I'm cubing it. I'm going to make a really quick and easy pasta. I have some organic fusilli right here. I'm going to cook that until it's done. Then saute in lard, of course, peas and garlic, and then my cubed ham. Add some broth and cream, salt to taste, toss in the pasta, and have just a really quick and easy pasta. I really think the kids are gonna love this tonight. I'm recording this after I've made this, but not before we've had it for dinner. I think they'll like it. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you are brand new to my channel, please hit that subscribe. I make new videos every week on food from scratch, natural living, and a handmade home. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.